We all live now. Like,
Already.
so I've known you for forever down there. Like
Yeah.
what, a decade and a half
Yeah.
maybe.
High school.
Yeah. So got my guy Mike Bolin in the house today. Gonna be talking about a lot of things, but I want to talk about how you get started with the refing and everything,
So I haven't refed anything yet.
or not ref
Ring
announced.
announcing.
Yeah, that's my bad.
So it's kind of funny. I was doing the backyard wrestling stuff,
Mm-hmm.
which is not advisable to anybody.
Yeah.
But so I kind of got started with that with Jeff Landis, and then I started going with Jeff. He was filming the shows for some independents, mainly POG out of Coldwater, Michigan, ran by Dan Severn. And I started going and helping film those shows, and the guy that was actually running the show for Dan,
Mm-hmm.
Dollar, and I talked after a show, and I expressed some interest in ring announcing. He said, "Sure, come on back to the next month's show, and we'll have you shadow our ring announcer." So I shadowed their ring announcer there. I shadowed Ryan Anderson for PWK, and then it was actually almost a year to the day, November 11th, 2017. I got my first opportunity to ring announce. It was a joint show. It was PWK, POG, and EHF. It's called Stack the Deck, and it was headlined by they had an autograph signing and an appearance by Jake the Snake Roberts.
Oh man.
But so Jake was on that show, Shark Boy was on that show,
Nice.
and Crazy Steve. So it was a huge show,
Mm-hmm.
and I got to do ring announce the pre-show. That was the first time I ever got to ring announce. From there, there was another promoter in the crowd. So though from there, I was able to start ring announcing semi-regularly for a couple of those promotions. Evo out of Logansport, PWK out of the South Bend area,
Mm-hmm.
and then full time I started ring announcing for EHF, and that's pretty much where I'm at now. That's my home base, EHF in
Right
South
on.
Bend, and I did that for a while, and then I took a break last year when I got married and subsequently had a baby.
Mm-hmm.
I just came back about 4 or 5 months ago, and I've come back. They've already got another ring announcer, so now I've kind of transitioned into. I'm now the assistant GM of EHF.
Oh wow.
So, um, doing a lot less ring announcing now
Mm-hmm.
and more managerial side of things. So it's fun because I get to be the heel. I get to be the bad guy. So, and I have so much fun with that. Actually, we have a show coming up next Saturday, and that's when we're going to announce who the new GM is.
Okay.
So it's gonna be fun.
So let me just start rolling questions. First, what does EHF stand for?
It has many. I think the official line is extreme hardcore fighting.
Okay.
But we also like to say extremely happy fun time. Dysfunctional family entertainment at its finest.
At least it's still family entertainment.
Yeah, I mean, we do push the envelope. Most of our shows are R-rated, but there's a lot of kids that do show up. So, especially at the Century Center shows, so we try to curtail some of that back at those shows. But when we have our shows at Overtime Sports Bar, it's kind of everything's on the table.
I mean, that's the way it should be with certain things. I think this model that WWE has gone down, and a funny thing I had seen on TV, because me and Thomas have been trying to catch to see if they're still PG or not, and they are indeed still PG,
Yeah.
and it's just like, it's not gonna cut it, bro. I'm sorry. Like it's good to do those things, but it's also not good to do those things all the time. So
But one of the things that I talk about at EHF is it's okay to push that line
Mhm.
when it makes sense.
Exactly.
And make it mean something. Don't
Mhm.
just drop a million F-bombs because then they all lose meaning.
Yes.
But when you're dropping them in the context of the story and you have passion behind it and there's a reason for doing it, absolutely.
It's just like with move sets,
Exactly.
protecting move sets or not overusing a move from the beginning of the show that that is in plans for the end of the show to wrap up for next week or to do whatever. So don't go out doing 12 super kicks, which is why that move has lost dramatic,
And that's one of the things
meaning.
that bothers me so badly. Just because super kick is Shawn Michaels is one of my favorite of all time.
Mhm.
And,
Same here, bro.
that sweet chin music, when he would hit it, that was it. And now it's like, now you see 12 in a match, and it's like, what's the point?
Right. And it's not in the main event match
But
sometimes.
you can even go back further than that. You can go back to the DDT, which Jake the Snake invented. And when Jake hit that DDT, nobody kicked out.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's a transitional move. Now people look at a DDT as like, no, kick out at one.
Right.
It's not as impactful.
Mm-hmm.
Hogan used to drop the leg. Nobody else, and that's the way you protect those finishes. If Hogan's hitting his leg drop as a finisher, nobody else in the territory hits that leg drop.
Exactly. I just think it's a weird dynamic going on now. It's kind of like in real life where it's like you got super progressive people and then super conservative people, and then there's like that fine line in the middle of people that are just like, can't we just not like do the extra things but also like respect people and all that kind of thing? In wrestling is just like, now is, if you don't let people do what they want to do whenever they want to do it, then you're keeping them down, you want to bury them, you this and that and the fifth and the other.
Jim Cornette's one of my favorite personalities.
Mm-hmm.
Very opinionated,
but he's also very right a lot of the time, and a lot of times he's not right, but a lot of times he is right.
I agree with most of what he says.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that sometimes he tries too hard to keep it back in the 1970s and 1980s. And I'm a little bit more willing to understand things have changed, things have progressed. I don't think the business has died. I personally think the business is at the highest level it's been in years. With AEW, with WWE, NXT, with all of this MLW, ROH, Impact is coming on strong. There's so many more options to be able to watch wrestling. Independent shows. There are so many more options to watch wrestling almost every day of the week versus when we were younger. It was Monday night, Thursday night, every once in a while a Saturday night if you could, and Sunday nights for pay-per-views. That was it, and that was only once a month on those pay-per-views.
One second. Sorry guys, Tom just popped in. But yeah, man, I agree with that because I just it was so much simpler times back then, Mike.
Absolutely. And I mean, and then you go even back further, that's the territory days. Where, the only times unless you watched it that once a week in your local market, or you went to the show that once a week or once a month whenever they ran your town, that was it. That was the only wrestling you got, and then you had the fan mags. But
it's not the same.
It's not
even close.
We've progressed so much now. There's so much wrestling out there, and I think that it's a great time to be a wrestling fan. It's a great time to be involved in the wrestling business. But there's also a lot with having more wrestling. Does it water it down? Do you become desensitized to these crazy spots that guys do every day, week in, week out? And then the fans clamor for more and more and more and more. How much crazier can it really get? Honestly.
Well, I was talking to Ebony the other day, and she was just like, "Oh, do new things." And I was like, "Well, let's start there. You don't need to do anything new. Stop trying to think of all these crazier, more death-defying, more outlandish, like kind of stunts or whatever gimmicks, whatever you're trying to do, and just like make it good again. Yeah. If you can make it good again, like sorry, it's still Donald Trump thing, but make wrestling great again, man. Yeah. It's not very hard to me. It's not a hard concept."
I'm all for doing death-defying stunts and flips and all of that.
I love it, but at the same time,
as long as it makes sense and there's a reason behind why you're doing it, as long as you're selling it properly and you're not just doing it to go into the next spot.
But see, you're viewed as old and this and that if you have that mentality. But it's like, listen, guys, it has nothing to do with what you're thinking. It has everything to do with putting butts in seats, having business and knowing what you can and cannot do weeks ahead from now, and not just throwing everything into this one show, which is why I noticed like a lot of like hardcore fans, no matter if they know the ins and outs of the business or not, like they'll react to certain ways about certain things. It's like, but you have to understand though, this is making the money. Like if they leave a show on a cliffhanger or anything happens at the end that the fans don't like, I feel like people lose sight of how the business was done back in the day to understand how it's evolved to now. Like you either had a champion that was on top and decimated everybody and he was a babyface, or he had a dominant heel that the babyface just ran and chased for months, and that's how it was.
And that's why I don't get the whole hate on Brock Lesnar, because he's a part-time guy. You know, back when Hogan was a champ for 4 years, when Hogan was a champ, he didn't wrestle on every TV. You know, they wrestled, you know, you had TV on Saturday mornings. He didn't wrestle on those Saturday morning shows.
I mean, we go back further. What's his name? I was just about to say, who's the guy? Who? Yep, Bruno Sammartino. He once a month, you know. So it's just like, and he's still great to this day. And it's like, there's a little thing called too much exposure, and it's because sometimes they don't know what to do with you, but it's just like the fans are clamoring for it. But I think that's a good thing. That means that you want to see them win or lose, you know?
Yeah. I take it back to just this past Friday night. You had the NXT invasion of SmackDown, and it was okay. I for what it was good. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until the main event that I got truly invested. Why? Because Daniel Bryan and Adam Cole told a story in the ring. Mm-hmm. Everything that they did in that ring was for a purpose. Everything that made sense. They hooked me in. Those are the kind of matches that I'm like, that's why I'm a wrestling fan. Those are the kind of matches I can point to in the modern era and say, there's not many in the modern era that I can point to and say, that's why I'm a wrestling fan. You want to go back on the WWE Network for just $9.99? I can point to a million other matches, but in the modern era, they're few and far between. But that was one. Adam Cole versus Daniel Bryan for the NXT title was amazing.
Yeah, that's what kind of truly bums me out now about being a wrestling fan and knowing like the ins and outs and understanding it and getting like money and placement on the card and all that stuff. But the sad thing that just kills me as a pure wrestling fan is like how it doesn't mean anything anymore. And it's just like, well, we just want to see athletes do this and that, and the right or perfect athlete should be guaranteed a title or title spot. And it's like, but what about all the other stuff? What about the mic skills? What about your moveset? What about how you work a match? What about the meaning of the match that you work? You know what I mean? What about all these things? Like, it's so many great athletes, you know, but...
And looking at that whole entire episode of SmackDown, everything built to that main event. Mm-hmm. Every part of that show told the story to invest into that main event. You don't have that. I mean, now you look at Raw, SmackDown, and even AEW. It's all, well, this segment is building to a segment next week, and this segment is building to another segment next week. There is
no pay-per-view.
Or a pay-per-view. Mm-hmm. There's no continuity throughout the entire show. It used to be Stone Cold's music hit at the beginning of Raw, and whatever they did set up that main event. But throughout the show, he interacted with different people, and it all built that excitement and built that. I watch Raw and I watch SmackDown and I watch AEW now, and yeah, the match itself may be like, oh, that'll be a good technical match. That'll be a good match. But nothing really goes, what's going to happen next? You don't get left with that. I don't end Raw. I don't end SmackDown. I don't end AEW. And not even really NXT with the feeling of, man, I can't wait till next week. I don't have that feeling anymore. I think the last time I truly had that feeling, 2011, with CM Punk. And I remember sitting there watching that pipe bomb promo and thinking, I need more information. Like, what's going to happen?
I remember when that happened. I had like him, I had another buddy, and like two other people hit me up all that night saying, "Did you see CM Punk? Did you see?" I was like, "No." I was like, I was at work or something. I didn't see it, and then I went. So I was like, "Oh." Oh, so
And
now we want to be good again.
I remember I was laying in bed and I was watching it and I was falling asleep. And then but as I was falling asleep, I was hearing what he was saying. And I'm like, I popped my eyes open because it was like that moment where I know, about wrestling. I know it's all entertainment. I know that they are handed as good, but you hear that promo and you're like, wait a minute. I don't know if he was supposed to say that. And you got that feeling. It was like, I know all that other stuff is BS, but that was real.
Mm-hmm.
And you felt that. And I think wrestling is missing that, honestly. And it doesn't matter what level of wrestling you're on, it's missing that. All that other, and that I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of like JR's podcast.
Me too.
Bruce Pritchard, Arn Anderson, Eric Bischoff.
Yep.
I
Same here, bro.
listen to a lot of those.
Stone Cold, all of them, Chris Jericho.
And a lot of them say the same thing. The goal is, okay, I know to have that feeling when you end up at the end of the night and go, yeah, I know all those other matches weren't gonna, but that one, those guys hated each other. Those guys really don't like each other. And when you can get that feeling and that emotion from the crowd, you've hooked them.
Man, if we could just get the Freebirds of Von Erichs just one more time.
Yeah.
I want to see somebody just throw a bottle in the ring or something.
And it's crazy because now I've been fortunate enough to be involved in pro wrestling and actually take a few bumps here and there. Pretty much almost every show now, end up taking some kind of super kick or get thrown out of the ring by somebody.
So how are the bumps? How are you taking them? How are you feeling afterwards?
I'm like, I don't know if they hurt. Like people ask me how did they hurt, and I'm like, I don't even know. Like I was so lost in the moment.
The adrenaline going. You got time to pay attention to that nonsense.
I've been such a fan of pro wrestling for my entire life that I'm just like when I get to the back, I'm just like, holy shit! I can't believe I just did that. You know what I mean? Like I can't believe that I just was in front of a crowd in a pro wrestling ring and got kicked in the face.
Right.
I think I sent you the video the day after it happened last month.
So how did that all come about?
So that
like that day, the day of, or when did you find out like that was going to be?
Middle of the day after we had everything set up. One of the guys came up to me and says, "You ever taken a super kick before?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You ever taken it from someone who doesn't pull their kicks?" So then I had it all built up in my head, like, "Ooh, this is." And
got a Bret Hart situation coming.
Like I'm like, man, Jason Page, the guy who kicked me, phenomenal young talent, probably one of the best I've seen on the Indies, and he's only been doing it maybe a year or two.
Oh, that's good.
I mean,
that's what's up.
He's got the look, he's got the charisma, he's got the ability. I couldn't say enough good things about Jason. And just super, super talented. So the storyline behind that was I'm running for the GM spot. And so we had a meet the candidates segment where all of us candidates for the GM of EHF got to say our piece. And one of the candidates is, her name is Lainey, and she actually happens to be Jason's girlfriend. And I took issue with the fact that she was in there trying to be the GM when her boyfriend's a champ and kind of trying to help his career out. So I kind of backed her into a corner and started yelling and stuff. And then Jason slid into the ring and she pointed. I turned around and took that super kick.
Like a champ, damn it. Like a champ.
I tell you, though, my jaw was rocked for a couple days after that one.
Really?
Yeah.
Had that like sand feeling or something, like the pops.
Yeah, he got me pretty good. So we'll see what happens on the 9th.
Oh, is that when you guys' next show from the past one?
Yeah, so November 9th at the Century Center in South Bend, Reformation happens.
Okay.
So, Century Center shows are always fun because I love that venue. It's like an amphitheater type seating, and like there's a little raised up little circular stage at the bottom, and that's where the ring is.
Nice.
So I love the atmosphere of the Century Center. It's usually raucous. They just announced this week that EHF has actually gotten TV in the South Bend market, so we're gonna have a 1-hour monthly television show. on the local Fox affiliate there in South Bend.
That's dope, bro.
Yeah.
So are you like actual assistant for like in the back,
Yeah.
or for TV purposes, or both?
Yeah, I'm both. So, I do a lot of help with the owner of EHF, Adam. We're in regular contact. It's kind of hard because of the distance between where I live and where he lives, but we're always in constant contact, and I try to help him out with whatever he needs as far as promoting and the creative side of things.
Right on.
I'm not saying I'm influencing on anything, any kind of
No,
or
but
anything like that. But if my opinion is asked, I'll give it.
right.
Or sometimes if I have an idea of what we're doing, and usually my input is only on what my segment might be for the
Gotcha.
show. But if typically he comes to me and says, "Hey, this is what we're thinking," and I'll say, "Oh, I like that idea. How about if I tried this as well?" And he'll say, "Yay or nay," and I'll do whatever the boss tells me to do.
Right.
But I am trying to get more involved into that creative process and really helping the brand grow, because I do believe in the EHF brand. I believe that we put on quality shows every month.
When did EHF like start?
Believe they started in 2016.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So.
Wow. I'm saying wow because you guys are already getting a TV deal and all that, and I know indie companies that have been around for a while and don't even have that.
And the South Bend market is so, like, you have a lot of companies that run that South Bend market, and I haven't been to too many of the other company shows. I've been with PWK a couple of times. Most of my experience with PWK has actually been here in Fort Wayne when they ran here, but EHF is just a different breed. Is the way the crowd is at those shows, and and it's crazy because a lot of times it's the same crowd at all the shows. The same few people are always there, but the way they react at an EHF show and the way they are involved in the EHF show feels so much differently than if they were involved at a PWK show or one of the other shows. I don't really follow them too much because I'm not around as much, but that EHF is such a unique brand. I've never been into an indie show like EHF. I've never been into a locker room at an indie show like an EHF locker room. Everybody is there trying to support each other. Everybody there is trying to help make the next guy better, which I think that alone goes above and beyond and makes the entire show better.
Oh yeah. So is EHF kind of like the vibe? Is it like WWF, Attitude Era, Ruthless Aggression, ECW?
I would say more ECW. The early days of ECW. There is a lot more. The rules, a lot more hardcore matches. So we have the EHF Championship, we have the EHF United States Championship, we have the EHF Hardcore Championship, the EHF Tag Team Championships, and the EHF Women's Championship.
Right on.
But there's a lot of hardcore stipulation matches. At the last show, we had a chloroform on a pole match.
Jesus Christ.
That was interesting.
So what happens if they win?
So the goal of the chloroform on a pole match is to climb up, retrieve the chloroform and rag from the pole, and then the first person to knock out the other person with the chloroform is declared the winner. And there was a whole backstory to it where one guy had knocked one guy out with chloroform, and then the next show he did the same thing, and they've been feuding, and he had cost them the world title, and
my God,
it was
that's savagery at its finest right there.
One of the most entertaining matches I've seen in a long time.
Oh my God. I wish I was there to see that one.
I mean, we've got a tag team. It's probably one of the best tag teams that I've seen in a while. They actually trained at Seth Rollins' school not too long ago.
Nice.
Called the Mosh. And these guys they're out there. They're entertaining. One of the best overall tag teams that I've seen in a while. We've got those guys. We've got Team BFF, which is Big Daddy Keto and DW Kelly. They're the best friends. We've got the Ginger Nation.
Two gingers.
Yes. They prefer the term ginger.
It's less offensive.
It is.
It sounds more cool and accepting.
But they do a thing with ginger snaps.
Oh my God.
It's great.
They could probably do shit for days and years.
it's-
All the ginger jokes out there.
Theme music.
That's dope.
So
do you guys allow people to have like their own music, or
Yeah.
do you guys like? So how does like royalties or pay and all that work? Is it just based off of the show how it does? Because like that's how they did back in the day. So
Right. So I don't know how all that's set up. I
Got
have
you.
my own deal with Adam, and I get paid what I get paid. I don't know what everybody else gets.
got you.
But as far as music goes, depending on the character, and a lot of times it's up to the talent. What do you want? Adam will send me a message. Oh, I just got to have my first official theme song at the last show, and he sent me a message. It was like 2:00 in the morning. He goes, "Hey, what do you want your theme music to be?" Cocky by Kid Rock. And that's what I came out to at the last show.
So I'm imagining a Kid Rock song has cussing.
Yeah.
Is that one?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, so they allow songs with
Yeah.
okay, right on.
So the TV show we're gonna do is more of like a highlight.
Okay,
So there's a lot of editing that's gonna go into
Mhm.
it. So we could probably take the music and that kind of stuff because we don't want to get sued. That's
Right.
the biggest thing. Certain music artists have issues when you start
Yeah.
using their music.
it's not like you're getting paid off the music, so it's not like a concert or anything.
Right.
You're using the song for like 30 seconds,
Yeah.
so that's kind of dope. So are you gonna have like any part in the show, in the TV show, and all that?
It's probably just gonna be a highlight. So and I don't know this for sure because I haven't talked exactly what's going to happen, but from what I understand, it's going to be like more of a highlight package of whatever the last month's show was, featuring interviews and things like that.
Okay.
So I'm sure that I'll appear in it, throughout because.
Will you guys have like a narrator of the show, or somebody like a?
We typically have we have commentary that gets dubbed because we record all of our shows anyway.
Okay.
But we typically have commentary that records audio and then we dub that in. So
Okay.
that could be a thing, or our ring announcer does a lot of our narrating for the.
I was gonna say because in WWE when they do stuff like that, they'll have like one of their like what's her name, Renee Young or somebody,
Michael Cole,
yeah,
or somebody like that,
and they'll be talking and then they'll like show clips and stuff like that.
It very well could be that way. I'm not
Okay.
exactly sure what format we have set up on that yet, and I'm sure next Saturday when I sit down with Adam, he and I will talk a lot about that.
Do you have like aspirations to stay in EHF forever, or stay in EHF and then try to get something else, just depending on like your role in EHF, I guess?
Right now, and I don't try to look too far into the future, but right now my main goal is to make EHF as good as possible. And if something else comes up and I can work at another show, or another promoter calls me and says, "Hey, I need a ring announcer," I'll go do it. If the money's right and the timing works out in my schedule, I'll go do it. That doesn't happen very often. I haven't gotten booked anywhere else in a long time. But I think the last show I did that wasn't an EHF show was Heroes and Legends.
Okay.
So
the one that Sting was at, just this past one, or?
So I was at the one that Kevin Nash was at.
Okay.
And I was just helping film with Jeff. And then I was at one last year where I actually got to ring announce there. I'm trying to think who was all at that one. Mean Gene was there because he and I talked backstage for.
Hey, you called him before he passed.
Yeah,
that's what's up.
He and I talked backstage after he heard me announce, and he gave me some advice, and it was like probably the coolest moment in the history.
That's fucking dope.
Yeah. So,
fuck, man, that's dope. I'm serious though. I've been around, not like around like with them, but like I've interacted with enough wrestlers to know that it's like what I've been around is like 10 to 25% of them are like legit cool and like they aren't all on their ego and all this other shit, and then the rest of them are just like either give me money or get out of my face because I don't really want anything to do with you kind of thing.
And it's funny to me and because I've been around certain names in the business that they were names back in the 80s, but they've kind of fallen off. You haven't heard from them in forever. They're the ones that have treated me like that.
Really?
It's the ones that have been more recent that have been super cool. You know, with exceptions. You know, Jerry Lawler, super nice guy.
Oh yeah, I imagine King would be.
You know,
but he was raised around, you know, what I mean, down home people that are just, you know,
genuinely
dope.
There was a wrestler that was super rude to me. That has been on TV in the last decade. I'm not going to mention him by name.
Oh, you don't got to do that here.
I'm not going to mention him by name. He was a little short with me, is all I'm going to say. So
that could either be Hornswoggle or.
Why did I have to go off and say the short
Right. So, who are some of the dope wrestlers that you like interacted with?
Kevin Nash was super laid back and chill. Off the top of my head, he was the first one that came to mind because I sat there and talked to him for a while. Brooke Hogan, I sat there and talked to for like an hour.
Wow.
And actually, I walked up and I just want to tell her like how much her dad meant to me because he was the reason I became a wrestling fan. And we sat there and we talked, and then I had to go help Jeff film something. She says, "Come on back, I want to talk to you some more." And we sat there for an hour.
Wow.
So she was super cool.
Glad to hear young men are having good experiences with the females associated with wrestling.
The Beautiful People.
Nice.
I walked in there. I didn't have a whole lot of cash on me. I wasn't paying for autographs and stuff, but I just wanted to walk up and shake people's hands because that's the way I broke into the wrestling business. Was, you know, I was always respectful, but I wanted to, you know, walk up and shake people's hands and just meet them.
Right.
You know, even if I didn't have the money to take a picture or get an autograph, I wanted to meet these people. And I remember talking to Angelina Love and Velvet Sky.
Nice.
And they came over and gave me a hug. They're like, you know, most people, if they don't have money, they just say hi and walk away. But you actually wanted to like shake our hands and be respectful, and we're honest and say, you know, look, I don't have the money to do the autograph and stuff, and
that's another reason why I figured out that they were like kind of dicks, because people are like dicks to wrestlers, and it's just like, bro, why you're making it bad for everybody and everything.
But you know, it was Mick Foley, who I've met several times.
Bro, he probably seemed like one of the most dopest people in wrestling to meet.
He had done 2 comedy shows here in Fort Wayne, and I went to both of them.
Nice.
After each show, everybody who bought a ticket, he did an autograph signing, and if you brought something, he'd sign it. If you brought something in, like I brought the one time I brought a copy of his Foley is Good. No, not Foley is Good. What was it? Have a Nice Day.
Yes. Okay.
Have a Nice Day. The first time I met him, he signed that for me for free, and then the second time I brought the Countdown to Lockdown book.
Okay.
He signed that one.
That's what's up, bro.
If you brought something, he'd sign it for free, you know, or if you didn't, he'd sell you something that you could, like an 8x10 or something. But he sat there and talked to you while you signed and made eye contact and seemed really genuine about it. Gosh, I'm trying to think who else was super. Bob Backlund.
Oh,
Charlie
nice.
Caruso.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love to meet Charlie.
Mutual friend Russell.
Boy.
Bought an autograph and a picture. We went up to her like 3 times because he just wanted to talk to her.
I ain't mad at him.
Right.
Yeah. Was she nice? Like really nice?
Super nice. One of the nicest people ever.
Nice.
I did an interview with Ricky Morton of the Rock
and Roll Express, and I love to fucking do that.
One of the craziest interviews I've ever done.
Was he a wild man, like all over the place?
All over the place. And he was super calm, quiet. That red light went on, and then he went into promo mode. That red light went off, and he was like, "Man, thanks," and gave me a hug. Probably one of the coolest. Shane Douglas was really cool. I ring announced for him at a show in Van Buren, Indiana, and got to do his ring introduction.
Some of these people aren't going to even know who you're talking about, but just know they some old school cats.
The OG,
yes.
Mr. Extreme, the franchise Shane Douglas.
Yes.
Sat in the locker room with the boys and just told stories and talked ring psychology, and Tatanka was really cool. Got to ring announce.
Nice.
Walked up to him, introduced myself, asked him, you know, what I always ask people when I'm ring announcing. What do you want me to say? Is there anything specific you want me to mention? And he goes, I feel confident that you'll know what to say when you get out there. And it came back because he was the main event, obviously. It was a triple threat with Shane Mercer, Congo Kong, and Tatanka. Huge match. Great match.
Tatanka still go?
Oh, Tatanka
like a G.
Still go.
Okay.
This was 2018.
Oh.
He could still go.
Right on.
Like he never missed a step. Walked back.
He can put a show on back in the day,
walked
man.
back to the curtain. I asked him if everything. He was like, "Dude, that was great." And you know, he gave me some pointers of different things he'd heard. And same thing with it's not a name, but it's a guy that I worked with several times, and I talked to Jason Saint.
Oh wow.
Jason Saint. After he was actually managing Shane Mercer in that match, and you know I talked to him, and then we interviewed Jason, and I got to conduct the interview, and then a couple days later I was talking to him on Facebook, and he sat there for an hour giving me pointers and told me what I did right and what he felt like I could improve on to make my sound better, and every time I've ring announced, I've taken what he said, and I remember that because it has made my announcing better. And that's what I try to do at every show I do, whether I'm announcing, whether it's the EHF, and I try to take what I can, and I'll ask anybody that saw whatever I did and say, okay, give me some feedback, because I want to take that and turn that into, I want to be better. You know, I'm not here just because, I'm a fan and I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be here, but I also want to get better because I want to keep being here.
For sure. Yeah, I understand that 1000%, bro. It's cool going to the dance and being there, but once you've been there so many times, now you see like there's things that takes place to make this dance happen,
and putting it all together, and making it to where what you're doing matters. So when I came back to EHF, they introduced me, and I walked through the curtain, and the fans popped.
Wow!
Because for so long I had been the voice of EHF, and then they popped when I came back because it had been like 8 months since I'd been there, and then I turned heel. So now the fan, and at first I was just kind of.
That's the perfect time to do it, though.
But I was getting that when I first turned. It was like, nah.
Yeah.
They kind of ignored me, but I've kind of gotten to that point now. I walk through that curtain and I hear those boos.
Okay.
And
it's coming before you even hit it.
Yeah.
That's good though, bro. That means that you're doing something right.
Yeah.
Each week, building off of that heel momentum.
And probably the best line I ever did. I was cutting a promo a couple months ago, and one of the fans jumped up and started saying something, and I said, "You sir, sit down." It was a lady. It's probably one of my favorite lines I've ever done.
When you say it, makes me think of that GameStop lady. Or, yeah, I'm going to say lady. Yeah, but the GameStop dude kept calling her, man. Sir, she's like, excuse me, it's ma'am.
Yeah.
Bro.
So, yeah, I mean, that's EHF right now is my home, but I would definitely explore other opportunities if they presented themselves.
So what would be like your dream position to have in just the industry in general, or at EHF?
In general, I think as a manager, I think that's
like Paul Heyman manager.
Yes,
okay.
So I've always been a fan of managers.
Same here, bro.
Dating all the way back to Bobby the Brain Heenan.
Facts.
It's one of my favorite wrestling T-shirts I have is a Bobby the Brain Heenan T-shirt.
The art of a manager is just so lost now.
Is, and
it breaks my heart.
Bobby Heenan, Paul Heyman, Jim Cornette,
Captain Lou Albano, bro.
Captain Lou, the Grand Wizard, Jimmy Hart.
Speaking of which, I don't know why he's been with Hogan with this flair and him thing. Why? He hasn't even said a word. He's just been there with his mic.
So the thing with Jimmy is Hogan's real life manager. Like he handles all of Hulk's travel. He's been doing that since like the early 90s. That's why wherever Hogan goes, Jimmy Hart shows up. Because he's Hogan's real life. Like he makes sure that Hogan's travel goes right. He makes sure that, things happen. Yeah, that's why Jimmy is always he does a
That
lot
makes
of
more sense then. He's the Paul Heyman that doesn't talk, and Hulk Hogan is the opposite. So, right on, understood.
But that's why Jimmy. And I think that's kind of why I think Jimmy is underrated. Honestly.
Oh yeah, he's underrated, but I just didn't understand why he's been there lately because he hasn't said a damn thing. But that makes more sense.
That's why.
Oh yeah, he's definitely up there with man, especially back in the day.
Actually,
he did a lot back in the day.
Back in April at the last Heroes and Legends I was at when I was helping film, he actually managed Jerry Lawler at Heroes and Legends, and that was the first time he had managed Jerry Lawler since like the early 1980s.
Yeah, I was gonna say
when he left Memphis to go to WWE, he was Jerry Lawler's manager back then. That was the first time he had managed Jerry since then.
I love to see them two in their prime.
Oh man,
I know Jerry back in the day.
One of the coolest things about Heroes and Legends that I've been able to do is I've been able to film. So I've actually gotten to film ringside for a couple of Jerry Lawler's matches. That being one, there was a match he did against Drew Skills a couple years ago that was just amazing. And that was the first time I'd ever been.
Could you imagine being in the ring with Jerry Lawler just to hear what he has to say and how he runs through a match and just everything? I would be a fucking magnet on the other biggest magnet in the world.
That's one thing I love.
This is beautiful.
That's one of the biggest ways I've learned anything in the wrestling business is just sitting in the locker room at shows and listening to guys put together their matches and talk about things. And especially from the guys that have been doing it a while, you hear the psychology and you're going to do that clothesline spot, but why are you doing that clothesline spot? Where
you go next? What happens before that? And I get that because I don't like that people say that wrestling is always choreographed. It's like once you get to that point, you don't need to choreograph the moves. You're just going over like the ins and outs, the things that you got to talk the intangible stuff of the match.
If you were a non-wrestling fan and you were to sit there, you wouldn't know what they said,
right?
Because a lot of it, then you're gonna boom, 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 shit can't meet, boom, boom, boom. You hear a lot of boom, 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 booms. Those boom, 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 booms are something,
right?
They could be elbows, they could be knees, they could be kicks. They're not really planning on what they are, but there's like, there's a little fight here, a little fight there. They're not planning every punch and kick and slam. They're planning the big stuff, the transitional periods. Okay, so after you body slam me this, then I go into duck, clothesline, and then boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, I was explaining that same thing to her when we were watching Friday's SmackDown last week or something. But she asked the same thing, like, how do they do that and blah, blah, blah. I was like, well, first off, whenever you start most matches, they have a certain move set that they, they cycle between like getting the match started, getting people like this and then having them sit back in the seat because now the match is about to start and here comes the psychology part of it. So
I've been introducing my wife a lot to the NXT brand because I'm like, these are the good, and a lot of the way I've done that is to be 2K because we don't have internet or anything at home, very kind of Amish lifestyle. So one of the ways I've done that is the 2K game. So I started showing her the different characters on the 2K game that are from the NXT roster. It was really nice on Friday Night SmackDown when you had all the characters I had just been showing her, Keith Lee, Matt Riddle, the ones I was excited about. They show up on SmackDown, and I'm like, see, She's like, but why isn't he wearing shoes? I'm like, because he doesn't have to wear shoes.
Right. It's part of his gimmick. Well, it's been a bunch of people that didn't wear shoes. I know Rusev, before he hurt his foot, he was wearing shoes. So if he wants to be a dumbass, not wear shoes and hurt himself,
that even goes all the way back to like Kevin Von Erich.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's that's been a thing for years. You either was bare feet or you taped up your feet and to your ankle, and that was it. You went out.
Umaga.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Umaga was the best one to me. Everything he did seemed like it just hurt. It had meaning. It was just like something only he could do, and he had like that Umaga swagger, you know. Like he just, and that's what I mean. Like movesets tailored to those people.
So for a guy like Umaga and a guy like Yoko, you look at a guy that's those sizes. They're not. You don't look at them like athletic guys that can move and have a furiousness to their strikes and a quickness to them that come out of nowhere. But man, those two guys, like a standing sidekick out of nowhere. And those guys could move like they were Shawn Michaels in that ring. And those are why some of their matches are like, one of my favorite John Cena matches is against Umaga.
Oh yeah.
Royal Rumble.
When you put the rope around him, yep. That was one of my favorite matches too, because I definitely thought the only way Cena was gonna like win is if some like crazy interference.
Yeah.
So, just because Umaga was just so fucking dominant at the time, he was just taking out everybody. Scripted or not, he looked like he could fucking just go in and take out a couple dudes that's not his size.
At Umaga and his body type, and you look at Great Khali and his body type, you would think Khali would be a more agile athlete.
I wouldn't, but he got two. I get what you mean though. He got two 2x4s for legs. They ain't got no decap bends or ligaments in them bitches.
And it's crazy because like when Khali debuted, I was like, that's the guy from The Longest
Yard. Because when he debuted like 6 months after that movie or something, because that movie came out 05 and he came out 06
like early
with
06.
Batista. Yep. Because I remember he was doing that thing with Ray and Batista for a while. We was like crushing their skull and making them bleed.
After he did that, he went on to Taker.
Which was kind of trash.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie, in hindsight. Yeah, they always seem to be doing that with the big guys. They're this big monster until the superhero beats them, and then they're just
then they're nothing.
Discarded trash.
Then they end up dancing
right.
with somebody.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, before we got here, I'm just ask. I got 2 questions before we go. Who are your top 5 all time? Any organization in general. Wrestling is wrestling. When big boys talk about it. So, what is your top 5 in general right now, or of all time, and then your top 5 right now?
Okay. So of all time, Hogan, Austin, Shawn, Brett, Triple H. Right now, AJ Styles, Cody Rhodes,
My guy.
I'm gonna go with a surprising one here, but Ali.
Okay.
I really like Ali.
Okay. I'm excited to see what they do with him.
Yeah.
Like 5 years from now, I want to be able, like, Ali did some dope stuff and he was in some big things. So
Jericho.
Oh yeah.
Like if I had 6 for my all time, Jericho would be on there. And then I'd have to go with Moxley.
Crazy thing. They still have Dean Ambrose on all the trucks.
Yeah.
Yep. I've seen it. They have a SmackDown Live thing that they did for them coming to Fox. They did like a 30-minute documentary about like behind the scenes and all that shit. And somebody was walking by and they were in the background. You can see the trucks. Dean Ambrose face all over it.
I was playing the 2K game, and there's a logo. If you go into like the WWE logos, put on your creative roster, there's a logo for the Shield. It's the more updated one that they had right before Dean left.
Oh.
It has like Dean Ambrose's logo. It says Ambrose next to it. So
That shit, how all that happened. Was just,
That vignette they did
Yeah.
when he first like officially was able to like start taking bookings. Movie quality stuff right there.
Mhm.
Movie quality.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what happens with AEW. So, where do you think AEW will be 10 years from now? Because I think that they won't, money wise and notoriety wise, be as big as WWE, but I know they'll be well off better than TNA ever was.
Oh yeah,
That's just my opinion. Because TNA always had their, and then whenever they lost literally everybody, and now you watch them now, it's like people like Brian Cage, and the best person on there to me is Tessa Blanchard. Everybody else is kind of just like, well, you'd be a mid-carder anywhere else. Just be honest.
I think AEW will be around for the long haul.
Me too.
I don't see it fizzling out. But like you said, I don't see it beating WWE.
No.
But I do see it constantly competing with WWE. I do, and my hope for that is it makes WWE's product better, because honestly, that's when WWE's product started to go down, was when WCW went out. They never reached the heights that they had when WCW was really competitive with them. And that's because they became complacent.
I mean, they didn't have any competitions, but it also don't help that you made yourself complacent with some of the stuff that they, were doing. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of stuff that just like, it would have been good, and you guys could have built off that ruthless aggression era, but then like you kind of, first they were screwing wrestlers, so that's, then they were screwing fans, and then they didn't know what the hell they were doing in the front office or anything, so it was just like everything was like a shit show with WWE since from like 2010 until like 20 minus the 2 CM Punk years until like what, 2015 maybe?
Yeah.
2016. So, and those were some rough years. Like, it doesn't seem like it was that long, but watching it,
I didn't even go back further than 2010.
Oh yeah, I could too, but I'm being very generous.
I'm saying like 2008.
Yes, the last one I saw was the Chris Jericho Shawn Michaels match. That was the best thing I've seen.
And that was
since
like the
then,
only
so.
thing. Like there are always gems in between. The CM Punk stuff, the Shawn Michaels Undertaker stuff.
But yeah, they always got little little dots, little here and there.
Never a consistency.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at the same time, you've got on the same pay-per-view that you have Shawn Michaels and the Undertaker having probably one of the best WrestleMania matches of all time. You have Santino Marella becoming the Miss WrestleMania on the same pay-per-view.
But okay, so this is what I don't like about what some of the stuff Jim Cornette says. So I'm the first person to tell you that there's two things in AEW that are very silly, of which I don't like because I feel like it trashes the wrestling industry. But WWE for years has been doing silly ass shit. For years.
I can already tell the one thing you're gonna say.
Go ahead. What?
Orange Cassidy.
No, I'm actually cool, Orange Cassidy. Okay. The dude that flips his dick and shit.
Oh, Joey Ryan.
Joey Ryan. I don't have a problem with the gimmick. I don't, actually. But I think just make it pure comedy. Don't ever have that be something that's like in the main event scene or like the tea party that they had on WWE with what's his name? The Russian cat that was a fucking destroyer and Santino and Sheamus.
I liked.
He's like, oh, you're a little milky.
Vladimir.
Yes.
So I liked Vladimir Kozlov.
I loved
when he first debuted on SmackDown.
Badass with that Triple H shit.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I loved him.
Yeah.
And then it kind of fizzled with Triple H, and then he went to ECW, and he started doing stuff with Santino, and it was just like. Yeah.
But I think that's the big problem with wrestling in general. Like
they bring in these monsters,
and they don't know what to do with people after a while.
They never pull the trigger on them. They never give them the belt. And then when it doesn't work, it's like, okay, we'll make them funny. Brodus Clay, I thought had amazing potential to be a bad mother trucker of a heel.
Don't even remind me.
When he was with Alberto.
Mm-hmm.
And then he took that time off and they brought him back as the Funkasaurus.
They were doing, well, the crazy thing about that time is So they fucking scratched. They brought him. They had all these vignettes and shit of him being a monster and doing all this crazy shit. And then they just totally scratched it.
Yeah.
And within a matter of a month, they came out with the Funkasaurus. The only thing that came out of that was Naomi.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the only thing that happened good out of that. And then everybody else isn't even there.
No, hold on. I say there's a second thing. There was that time Cameron tried to pin that girl when she was laying on her stomach. That was funny.
That's a little bright. Yeah. Little bright spot in that bullshit.
I always love that moment. Like that's probably one of my favorite things.
Yeah, but they got a big problem with doing that in the history of wrestling. It's just like, don't make a joke out of the good stuff. Like, at least try.
Yeah, like you know, you can always go back in almost any company and look at some of the stupid stuff they did. You know, WWE, like Katie Vick, you know. Yeah,
I don't mind the stupid stuff, but it's just like when you're rehashing the same stupid shit that didn't work before. Like, this is why AEW started.
When they brought Matt Bloom back, and they brought him back as this bad, like, Japanese warrior, Tensai, and he had the green mist, and he was just awesome. He was beating the crap out of John Cena. I mean, he was main event level automatically.
And then joined
and then,
Bros Club.
6 months later, he was like Sweet Tea, the hip hop hippo.
Yep. And then when he didn't do anything else, he went to NXT to do that.
Which he's doing great.
Yeah, for sure.
Great. But yeah, any company. WCW did the RoboCop thing. WCW did the Kiss Demon.
Who was it? Was it WWF that did the Shockmaster?
Nope, that
was WCW. That shit. Yeah, let's put a fucking stormtrooper out.
Yeah.
See.
Spray painting glitter.
That was the 90s though, whenever they were trying to like not do all that. They were trying the kid period for like a year, and it was like, okay, this isn't even working for WWF.
Maybe it's because I'm getting older or whatever, but like I look back at some of the Attitude Era stuff and like how people rave about it. But man, like I watched, this was a couple years ago, I sat down and I watched like all of 1998 of Raw. And I was like, man, there was like every show had like one or two segments that was like super good. Like those are the stuff that are implanted in your brain that they show highlights of. But then you've got like stupid stuff like the flying nuns and beaver cleavage, and like you've got all this other ridiculous stuff that sucked. But because Stone Cold was so, and The Rock and Mankind and Triple H, the guys who were in that main event level scene, were so hot and so good, you kind of push all that bad crap like Mae Young giving birth to a hand out of your brain.
That was bad, but it was funny as hell, and you know it, Mike. Don't you sit here at your fucking older age, sit here like, oh, that's fucking crazy. She only gave birth to a hand? Oh.
My favorite callback to that was like Raw. I want to say it was like Old School Raw or one of the like Old School Raws.
Oh, yeah, they did. Didn't they do her and Mark Henry again?
Yeah. And then like they open the door and Mae Young's standing there with like this guy in this big like foam hand costume. I was like, okay, that's great. Bruce Pritchard was just talking about that on his podcast. He was like, hey, he grew up to be a nice, fine, hell of a hand. And I was just like, that's great. I fucking love it.
Gives the best jobs ever a hand could give. Well, I appreciate you coming through, Mike. You want to plug anything before we get out of here? I know you guys got a show. You said
next Saturday, November 9th, we have EHF at the Century Center. Ringside is $20. General admission is $10. Go online, look us up on Facebook, EHF Entertainment.
I'll put all the links in the post and stuff. So
EHF Assistant GM has a Facebook page, so you can follow up what's going on with me there.
Right on.
But yeah.
Anything else? That's it for you?
That's it. That's all I'm really doing right now.
Okay.
So.
All right, man. Well, I'm excited to see what your future holds, bro. Because you look like you're doing all the right things behind the scenes and everything. And the fans being with you as a heel and a baby face. So
yeah.
So
it's gonna be a fun ride, and I can't wait to see what's next.
All right, you guys, check out EHF. Mike, appreciate it a lot, bro.
Yeah, absolutely.
Always good to see you. Take it easy, guys.